Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. We've got enough of the model in now. It's one thing about these systems when they come up right in the shortest of the short range. You don't have to wait for the whole run to look at something because it's happening right in front of you. And welcome to all of you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, subscribe. It's free. Hit the subscribe button. You get notified with an email when a new video goes up, and you're never going to miss one of these exciting weather videos. So we're going to look at the models this morning. They're all fairly uniform, and I think the idea of a general 6 to 10, 8 to 12 inch snowfall is pretty much a done deal in my view. They're all in the same ballpark. The new GFS actually is even a little more bullish than in the last couple of runs. It's been moderately bullish, but it is more bullish now in terms of generating total snowfalls again. Low in central Virginia, moves off the Maryland coast. This is by tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. It's snowing hard in all the dark blue areas down to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, into northeastern Virginia, southern New Jersey. The yellow is probably sleet, so it's just getting ready to change to snow. And it's my experience, by the way, that in these situations where you have a deep, intense feature like this, especially aloft, where it winds up in areas that start as rain, will wind up changing over to snow a lot faster than what the model indicates. And, as we go to 1 p.m., it's a little slower. I was a little surprised. This actually shows the measurable precip and not necessarily where the radar echoes are. So, it's probably the back edge of the snow might be a little bit east of where this dark blue is. So the bulk of all this would have fallen before 1 p.m. But I still think the model is a little bit slower by a couple of hours. And it also has a fairly deep low now, a 982 low south of Nantucket and east of the New Jersey coast. So that to me says we're going to have this 6 to 10, 8 to 12 snowfall. And by tomorrow evening, the back edge of the measurable is still back to about New York City. So again, it's slowing down just a little bit, or at least enough. Another one of these situations, you get a couple of extra hours snow, you're going to wind up with an extra 2 or 3 inches, particularly if you're in that heavy zone. And with respect to snow amounts, the GFS has, the white shading is a foot plus. So you can see there's like blotchy white that shows up here. So it actually has a coating to an inch as far south as, west-southwest of Washington, D.C., into northeastern Virginia. You start to get into some 3-inch amounts around Baltimore. You go into northernmost Maryland or northeastern Maryland, and you're looking at, 5-6 inch amounts that extend into southern New Jersey, except the southeastern counties. And you don't have to go too far from there into southern Ocean County, and you start to get into 10, 11, and 12, and that extends into eastern Pennsylvania, and then across Long Island, southeastern New York, and into Connecticut. And, the other thing is with this, the fact that there's probably going to be some thunderstorms with some heavy snows in there. So there's probably going to be some areas that wind up with a few inches more than others nearby because of the convective nature of what we're seeing. I think it could be, it's going to be an exciting, fun 8 hours for snow lovers for tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to it. I would just also advise, if you're traveling tomorrow in the morning commute, is going to be not good because it's going to be snowing very hard at the time. And I want to, immediately and politely dispel a couple of notions. Yes, we're having record highs today. I've had people throw at me, well, the warm ground. The ground is not an oven, all right? The warm ground, quote unquote, it only works in instances where the snow is light. If the snow is heavy enough, you could be in the 60s hours before it snows, and it will stick almost immediately. I've seen it happen. So this warm ground is nonsense. The sun angle thing is even more nonsense at this time of year because it's the early part of February. This is not mid-March, and you're going to have the intensity of the snow is going to compensate for all of that. And the one thing I'm going to be interested in very much is, with all the dynamics that are in the atmosphere, how cold does the bottom of the atmosphere get, and how quickly? Now, notice just show you on the GFS by 7 a.m., it's already in the 20s everywhere. North, and here's that freezing line, except for southeastern New Jersey where it's still above freezing. Everybody else is below freezing and in the 20s. It's printing a 24 up here near Newburgh, a 28 near Bridgeport, and then by 1 o'clock it's got 23, 22, 23. It's going to be every bit in the low 20s while this is snowing. We're going to be in between 20 and 25, and it's going to be it'll start off as a wet snow and then probably go over to a powdery snow. That could impact snow amounts as well. So, just kind of try and just weigh all this. A lot of people, and then they're worried about the fact that it warms up afterward and it melts away. Snow melts. It always has. It always has. And as far as I know, it always will. Okay, the RGEM model is next on the list. And we'll show you what that one is doing. It really had this super bomb last night. It still actually has a very intense low. It gets down to a 978 low when it's south of Long Island. Same idea, maybe a couple of hours slower, taking a little longer for the heavier snows to get out. The same areas get impacted as mentioned from earlier. And then on it goes to the northeast. And the RGEM snow amounts, again, based on 10-to-1 ratios, has the also same idea, but it does, curiously enough and interestingly enough, for Long Island, it has Long Island in an area of 12 to 18 inches, it seems. You know what? I've seen things happen out here that you don't often, in some instances you think it's not going to be the case, and it winds up being the case. I can't rule it out that there's going to be a pocket of 1 foot plus snows for somebody. I certainly could not rule that out. And the NAM model, we'll jump off to the NAM real quick. And the NAM is a little less bullish. I want to be a little careful though, because even though the NAM has 6 to 10 with these white area blotches of maybe 12 inches in pockets, which kind of makes sense. I think that's probably a good starting point in terms of forecast accumulation. It also has less down to the south. A little bit less, not a lot, but it does have the 6-inch plus amounts into southern New Jersey. But when I actually looked at the NAM numerical printout numbers in terms of total precip, it gave over, each of the last four runs has given more and more precip. So it now gives over an inch. It gives 1.10 inches of liquid for New York, for LaGuardia. So if that winds up translating at all snow at 10-to-1, that's 11 inches. And you can see as a total function of total accumulated precip. So you've got a half to 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So this area is an inch to an inch and a quarter. So it does pretty well from that standpoint. An inch to an inch and a quarter of liquid. The GFS has same idea, inch to an inch. Even in the white, it gives almost 2-inch amounts touching the New Jersey coast. Which is pretty interesting. But let's see. So that's a half, 3/4, 1 inch. So basically 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter from Long Island over into the northern half of New Jersey, with an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half further south. And the RGEM, sometimes it's a better. I have a better forecast. I find it a better forecast tool rather than look at the snow maps, because I don't exactly understand how they come up and how they make those. Do they do a little literal translation to how much liquid falls or whatever calculation they use? Sometimes I just like to, I like to look at the total accumulated precip and just do a little common sense math and figure it out that way. Now here's the RGEM, which gives a half to 3/4, to an inch to an inch and a quarter, inch and a half. So an inch and a half to an inch and 3/4 of liquid over Long Island. You can see how all the three models, even though they have lows going out in similar spots, I didn't show you the NAM surface, but I'll show that to you now. Even though they have lows pretty much of the same depth and going out to the same place, roughly, they all seem to have different ideas on how the precip shapes up. Slightly different, and that impacts how the models draw up the total precip field. But you can see on the NAM, It's a little further south than the prior two runs. Everybody got all nervous last night because the low was pinned up to the northwest, but the NAM was really the furthest northwest of all the models. All the other ones were concentrated further south. So it seemed to me like the NAM was going to probably go in the direction of the global models, which it has. It moves off the Maryland coast and then just kind of moves out straight east. It looks like, again, even the NAM is about an hour or two slower. The radar presentation here has the back edge of the snow to the coast, to New York City and the Jersey coast at 1 p.m. And then it moves out to the east from there and to eastern Long Island, and then out it goes. So I think, I honestly think that this is, at this point, this is usually the point where I kind of say, you know what, the model thing is fine. We'll look at it and we'll see what it does. But I mean, unless it does something really radical, I don't usually wind up changing my forecast based on that. Now it's going to be a matter of watching the radars and radar, satellite, and surface observations. Here's the upper trough at 500, and that trough, just basically swings east and strengthens as it goes by. It's progressive. It moves along from west to east, but the fact that that trough is strengthening, you can tell that by the increase in that darker blue area, the increase in the amount of cold air aloft expands as the trough swings east, is enough to blow this up into a major storm. That's the NAM's view. The GFS is probably the same. Well, there it goes. GFS, there you go. See, actually, the GFS kind of has even a bit more of a negative tilt to it, which I think lends a little bit more energy as the trough tries to lift up. And part of it does. There's a short wave. That lead short wave is right here. The main trough still to the west. It maintains a very distinct identity as it gets kicked along to the northeast, and the trough behind it just basically energizes it. So, you know what? This is going to be, for snow lovers, this is going to be a fun event. Let's real quick, I'll just quickly look at the rest of the country. And, once this system is wound down, we can go ahead and start focusing on other things, because the long-range pattern does look pretty blocky. We don't have a lot of the GFS out, so I'm going to do it from this run here. And there's our low. Now, in the west, we have another storm coming into the Pacific Northwest. A piece of that is going to break off and run across the Canadian border. So after the bitter cold air comes in Friday morning, it pulls out. We have a warm front here that's set up that might produce some light snow or flurries or a period of snow in northern areas, and then that moves away. Then we have another low coming out in northern Missouri with a warm front to the coast. Really no cold air here, so there'll be some rain with this, maybe a little freezing precipitation at the start in inland spots, but it doesn't look all that impressive. But down the road, when we look at it, again, don't take the literal view necessarily, but the fact that we have weather systems, here's one that's going to actually form in the Gulf of Mexico, which is something we haven't seen in a while. Now, earlier model runs were bringing this right up our coastline, and there's cold air here that builds back in. This model sort of backed away from lifting it up, but sometimes the model does that, and then out it goes, and then we have other systems coming through. The pattern gets very blocky, so there's going to be a tendency for higher pressure across northern areas and lower pressures across the south. So I think there will be opportunities along the way for additional snow events as we move through the rest of February and into the beginning of March. The models are pretty strong on the idea of us going to a very strong signature blocking pattern in the Atlantic beginning in a few days and maybe lasting a few weeks or perhaps a little bit longer than that. Okay, so subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, and it's free. Website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com. I'll have all the latest snowfall forecast maps for you, both mine and the National Weather Service's maps that update automatically. And I have one page, by the way, that all I have on it is the maps, Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states from the Weather Service. And anytime you go there, you just, whatever time of day it is, the absolute latest updated map comes up. So it's great, and you should bookmark that. And download my app and subscribe to my forecast for $1 a month. The app is free for Apple, for iPhones, and also for Android. My Weather Concierge is one of the forecasters on there for New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania. Be safe for tomorrow during this snow, and have a great Wednesday.